Doctor Who Story by Story. Shada Review. Just the facts. Shada is the name of a Doctor Who story that was intended to be shown as the sixth and final story of Season 17, intended to be broadcast in early 1980, and which would have starred Tom Baker in his sixth season as the Fourth Doctor alongside Lalla Ward as his companion, the Time Lady Romana. The serial was written by the then script editor, Douglas Adams, who had previously written The Pirate Planet in Season 16 and Season 17's much-loved classic City of Death, and produced by Graham Williams, in what would have been his final story in that capacity. However, all did not go as planned, and the filming of the serial was left incomplete by BBC strikes. The show was canned. However, the fact that the serial was half-filmed before it was cancelled made it a legendary entry in the series canon and has resulted in a number of belated attempts to revive it and produce a definitive version of the story. Plot. The Doctor and Romana are summoned to the Cambridge University rooms of Professor Chronotis, a retired Time Lord, who has lost a powerful book that he took from their home world of Gallifrey. The book had been accidentally taken by postgrad student Chris Parsons, who is baffled by the book's strange powers. However, someone else is also after the book, Skagra, a mad scientist who intends to use the book as part of a plot to turn every living person in the universe into nothing more than an extension of his own mind. Guest cast. The guest cast for this story includes Dennis Carey, who would return to the series as the Keeper in the Season 18 Tom Baker story The Keeper of Traken a year later, and as the fake public face of the evil Barad in the Season 22 1985 Colin Baker story Time Lash, as Professor Chronotis. The serial also starred Christopher Neame, a recognizable face on British and American television and film whose credits include the Hammer horror movies Lust for a Vampire and Dracula AD 1972, and is one of only a handful of actors to have appeared in Doctor Who, Star Trek, Babylon 5, Blake's 7, Beauty and the Beast and the A-Team. Shada also featured Daniel Hill, who would become famous in the 90s for his role as the snotty retirement home manager Harvey Baines in the situation comedy series Waiting for God, as Chris Parsons, and Gerald Campion, best known as the 1950s TV version of portly schoolboy Billy Bunter, as Wilkin. Trivia. Different versions of and attempts to complete Shada have materialized since its failure to appear on television in 1980. In 1992, the last producer of the classic series of Doctor Who, John Nathan Turner, produced a VHS version which cobbled together the recorded footage, added special effects, sound effects and music from McCoy-era composer Keith McCulloch, and engaged Tom Baker to narrate the missing sections of the story. This version was also released on DVD in 2012 in a box set along with the 30th anniversary documentary More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS. Big Finish also produced an audio version, albeit featuring 8th Doctor Paul McGann instead, which was presented as a crude flash animation in 2003. In 2010, record producer and Uber fan Ian Levine attempted to create his own definitive version of Shada, reuniting many of the surviving cast to perform the lines they did not get to record back in 1979, which were then set to animation, in the hope of securing an official DVD release. However, Levine failed to secure the involvement of Tom Baker, with the Doctor instead voiced by Paul Jones, and this together with rights issues scuppered any chance of his version receiving an official BBC release. In 2012, the serial was novelized for the first time by author and New Who scriptwriter Gareth Roberts, who had first come to fandom's attention with his faithful recreations of the Season 17 style in the 1990s with his missing adventure novels The Romance of Crime, The English Way of Death and The Well-Mannered War, all of which have since become Big Finish audio adventures starring Tom Baker and Lalla Ward. 2012 also saw an audiobook version of the novel released by Audio Go, which was read by Lalla Ward and John Leeson as K9, in spite of the fact that in the TV version, as with all of Season 17, K9 was actually voiced by David Brierley. In 2017 the BBC announced that a new version of Shada would be released on DVD and Blu-ray, this time with the missing sections animated by the team responsible for the 2016 animated release of the missing second Doctor debut story Power of the Daleks, again with the surviving original cast reunited, this time including Tom Baker. The first clips from Shada that many fans ever saw were actually in the 1983 20th anniversary special The Five Doctors. When Tom Baker declined to take part in the story, JNT used the clips, which had then never been seen before and seemed unlikely to ever be seen again, to represent the Fourth Doctor in the celebrations. Some elements of the plot of Shada, including Professor Chronotis, were reused by author Douglas Adams in his 1987 novel Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Reaction: Shada has always had a strange place in the affections of Doctor Who fans. The story was legendary for many years because of its status as a never-completed lost story, with opinions becoming more pronounced when more fans actually got to see what was left of it with the 1992 VHS release. As with much of Season 17, fan opinion is therefore split between those who adore the season's Douglas Adams tone and sense of cheeky humor, and those miserable fucking cunts with giant sticks up their enormous asses who don't. However, even the fans who do like the story tend to be split between which version of it they prefer. Many remain fond of the 1992 Tom Baker rated version. Others have expressed their love for the brand new 2017 version, while still others prefer the decidedly unofficial Ian Levine animated version, preferring the fact that it was presented episodically instead of the slightly controversial movie-style presentation of the 2017 release, and feeling that the animation was also superior. There are even a tiny minority of fucking weirdos who actually prefer the Paul McGann version, though why anyone would do that is a mystery to scientists and is probably just people trying to be fucking different, the awkward bastards. What I think. From the moment I saw the Tom Baker narrated version in the early 90s, I instantly fell in love with Shada. This is no great surprise, given I loved Season 17 already and the Tom and Lala combination even back then, and Shada was full of the same joie de vivre that makes that season so damn enjoyable. I can't say I was ever bothered by the Paul McGann version because I mean, really? I never did see the Ian Levine version, and the announcement of the new BBC official animation was a bit of a surprise. I was a little wary, to be honest, as I feared I might not like this version as much as the narrated one. However, for the most part, that didn't happen. There are a few quibbles, like the old Tom ending, which seems pretty random and what the fuck to me, and the decision to present it as a movie when there seems zero reason not to present it in the intended episodic format is also fairly bizarre. The new version is obviously quite a lot longer, which makes the pace inevitably not quite as zippy as the narrated version. And yet, for that and my minor quibbles, I still absolutely loved it. Shada is a lovely story no matter how it's presented, and is still one of my favorites. I also enjoyed the animation more than that scene in Power of the Daleks, whether it's actually better, or just easier to take when mixed with live action, or better in color or more suited to this style of story is debatable, but I still did. I would very much like to see more like this. How about animating some big Finish audio stories like the Tom, Lala Romance of Crime, or a lost story like The Nightmare Fair? The new version of Shada has done nothing to dim my enjoyment of this now not so lost classic. In fact, it has only enhanced it, and it remains one of my favorite stories ever. There is no way I can award Shada anything less than a full-on A+.